from Carver County Library. Welcome tonight. We have an exceptional author with us named Katie Stifter. She has written a memoir called The Funny Thing About Grief. I do know the title, We're so thankful to have Katie here with us. She used to be a local in our community. She's worked in the Watertown schools and lived in Waconia for many years with her husband and her children. Tonight's program is funded in part or in whole by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. And without those funds, we wouldn't be able to do amazing author reads and art programs that we are able to do with it. So thank you, Minnesota, for passing that legislature. And I want to introduce once again, Katie Stifter. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, thanks for having me. Like Bridget had said, I was a local Carver County library goer, and actually I'm in Chanhassen's library right now. Luckily, they let me in still, and I'm doing my Zoom interview in here just out of convenience. But love the libraries. Have always brought my children to Waconia's, Chanhassen's, even Chaska. So I'm really excited to be here talking to all of you. And I can't think of a better group of avid readers who love books and authors and local authors too. So I'm really happy to be here. So I lost my husband, if you haven't read my book and are still going to read it, about 4.5 years ago. And so since then, I've been doing different presentations, and I wrote a book, obviously, about grief. And so I've been like really passionate about education, grief education, because I don't speculate or I say that I know a whole lot about anything, but I do know two things in life. One, we're born, and one, we die. And so there's always been, and I think continues to be, obviously, stigmas around death and grief. And, not necessarily because anybody wants there to be, it's just an uncomfortable topic. And so I felt a real passion to promote loss and grief, because we all go through it, and it can and is one of the loneliest times of most people's lives, and a very, very, very hard and challenging topic, and tons of emotions that go along with it. And so I feel like the more that we talk about grief and loss, the easier it is and the less lonely that you feel when you do experience it. And, I hate to be like the negative Nelly, but we all are going to experience loss and grief. It's just a natural part of life that we go through. And so obviously we face it in different levels and different challenge levels and different people in our lives that pass, but we will always have people that we love pass away. And so that's kind of what got me started after my late husband died. Obviously I didn't start writing right away, but within probably a year or so, I started writing, and I've always liked writing. I never really had any like important things to write about. I really liked, my English classes, and I could write a mean college paper. I'm a school counselor by trade, high school counselor, and so I can write a pretty mean letter of recommendation. But I think sometimes it just takes something impactful to write about, and I found this very impactful and very passionate topic for myself, and not only for myself and for others around me, but for my kids. I want them to grow up in a world where, when they do experience grief or loss, they're not felt to be the odd one out, or not be able to express their feelings or sadness, because they're going to experience more loss and trauma. And so I want them to know how to deal with it and to help others understand it better. So again, this has been a strange year, because obviously over a year. So I haven't been able to do as many presentations, but been doing some of the more like Zoom kind of calls, or, book clubs and that kind of thing. So I typically have like a presentation that I would do. So I'm just going to talk a little bit, and then we'll have time for questions. Is that right, Bridget?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So again, thank you for listening and thank you for having me, Carver County Libraries. So if you've read my book, you might, or just seen the title of my book and haven't read it, you might think, grief isn't funny. So what does this title even mean? So I'm just going to read quickly from the first chapter, because I think it kind of sums up my book, sums up me, because I do use humor. That's one of my coping strategies that I've used throughout my grief. And it's really helped me to find joy again in life. And that's just something that's worked for me. So you might have stared at the title of this book, scratching your head. The funny thing about grief isn't funny, is it? Humor and grief don't seem to fit together, do they? They actually do. Honestly, laughter has helped me throughout my grief journey. This book is the story of how I survived my worst nightmare and came out laughing and crying, but most importantly, living. And so I really do feel like that sums up my story, and it is an ongoing journey for me. So I'm 4.5 years out from the death of my husband, but it still is something that is going to impact the rest of my life, because I still love my husband, my late husband, and I always will love him and I always will grieve him. And so, we get kind of caught up in the thought that, oh, it's been a year. You should be kind of moving forward from that. Oh, you're remarried, like you're better now, right? No, I never will be better. I always will be sad. I just have developed some skills and strategies and coping, and done healthy things throughout these past 4 years, and unhealthy things obviously as well, that have helped me to move forward, because the grieving community uses that phrase quite frequently, is moving forward, because we don't move on from our loved one, we move forward. Because when my husband died, I was only 35. And I had so much life left to live, and still have so much life left to live. And I didn't want to be stuck in my grief forever. And so it takes work to move forward. And so the book really is just about my journey, and then about how we can talk about grief and how we can help others through their grief. And so kind of just to start, loss is my tragedy and trauma, but we all have like different tragedies and traumas. And so, when we talk about grief, we can interchange that with our other traumas and tragedies that we have in life. And mental health is definitely has a big stigma attached to it. And I think if there's something that COVID has taught us, which there's lots of things, is that mental health is very important, and talking about it and addressing it are very important, and has a very strong attachment to grief as well, mental health, because your mental health can definitely deteriorate when you lose somebody. So, when I talk about tragedy or grief, you can interchange them, because unfortunately we have all sorts of different tragedies and traumas that happen throughout our lives. And it's just a fact of life, it's a part of life. And, we have chemical addictions in our families, divorces, loneliness, having your children grow up struggling, having friendship issues. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so, thinking about how we can move forward in life and how we can find joy in, even though we have these terrible moments in our life or terrible tragedies, things can improve, but you do have to work at it. And so now I feel like I've been given this story, whether I like it or not. I felt like a calling that, okay, now you've been given this story. You like to write, you like to talk, help people. And so it's just become my mission, so that others don't feel alone in their grief, loss, tragedy. And I thought to myself, if I can just help one person, that would be good. If I can help my children, if I can educate them. And so I already feel like I've accomplished my goal, whether people like my writing or don't like my writing, or like my story or don't like my story. I just felt like a mission to talk about my story, that this crazy, insane story that I've been given, and that I can help others just in my normal life, help them to see that you can move forward, you can have a joy-filled life, even when one of the worst things ever could happen to you. And, you know, I think there is a lot to be said to widows, to people that have gone through tragedies, that when outsiders look in and say, I could never do that. I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she moves forward. I don't know how she gets out of bed. And I'm just a normal person. I'm just a regular mom. Before my husband died, you know, I had 2.5 when I was pregnant, you know, with a job and a husband, and we just did normal, regular things. You know, we just had a normal, regular life. And I had this crazy tragedy happen to me. And I decided that I needed to continue to find joy in my life. And I wanted to do that for my children. I wanted to honor my late husband, but I wanted to do it for me too. Because if I'm healthy, my kids are healthy and others around me are healthy. So we all have, you know, a purpose and a story. I just felt like because I enjoyed writing, because I enjoyed speaking to others, that this is something that, you know, I was called to do. And of course, you know, I am a work in progress. I have my moments. So, but, you know, just a little bit quickly about, before, you know, we talk a little bit more about my story, but my late husband, was probably the funniest person I ever met. And so he's another reason that humor has been brought into my story and has been such like a critical piece in my life, is because we always would laugh together, and our children, and we would laugh together. And growing up, that was something that was always, you know, instilled in me. We poke and we tease and we prod and we just have fun together. And it has always helped me through some of the most challenging moments. Now, just because humor and laughter are something that helped me cope doesn't mean that that is something that is going to help you cope, but you have to find what it is that's going to help you. And laughter and humor have always helped me. And, you know, there is some research and studies. I'm not going to quote any of those because I didn't necessarily look them all up, but you can look them up if you want, because I'm, you know, a mother of three, actually expecting my fourth with 3 stepchildren. So life has really kind of thrown me for a loop. You can definitely ask me questions about that later. But you know, laughter and humor, they have wonderful like psychological and health benefits to them. And so being able to like relieve and relax your body, and you know, to know that life doesn't always have to be so serious, even when you're going through something really hard. It's okay to laugh, and it's okay to have some fun as well. So that's, humor has been just a super important part of my life. And so I really do feel like that I phrased coined the term, if the widow laughs, you can laugh. So if you feel like awkward, if I'm making a joke, I've had to talk to my teenage daughter about this, because we have a very sarcastic sense of humor, and sometimes it can go a little bit dark. And I'm like, you really have to pick your audience, honey. Like you can't always make some of these jokes. Like, I'm open game. You can talk to me about anything, but the outside world doesn't always understand the tragedy and the trauma that we've gone to, where we've had to, you know, laugh at some of these things that have happened to us. And so, but feel free. I'm always up for talking about it. If you see me, if you know me, to talk about grief, and you certainly will hear me laughing. And I've always had, you know, a crazy kind of laugh, where when I was in high school, people would be like, were you in the hall during third block? Because I could hear you laughing, and it has always continued. So again, laughter has just been super important to me, my family, my husband, and just raising my children. And I know it will always continue to do so. But in a blink of an eye, your life can just automatically change. You know, I woke up that morning, the morning that my husband died, and it was just a normal day. You know, we had plans for later on in that afternoon, and things just drastically changed within one day. And so, you know, here I was, a pregnant woman with 2 small children to raise. And my husband was missing for 3.5 weeks before they found him. And so it really shows you that things can just change so quickly, and we just need to enjoy the time that we have here. And really, understand and know what is important. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned through Andy's death is what is truly my purpose and what is truly important in life. And that to me is to love and to be loved in relationships and people. And those are the most important things in my life. Obviously, we have other responsibilities that we have to take care of in life. But in the end, to me, it's love and relationships. But it's kind of funny. I was just talking about that today with one of my coworkers that, one of the things that I prided myself in after the loss of my husband was that I had a just different perspective on life, and that letting some of the small things go. And that was so much easier for me then. But as time moves forward, I can find myself slipping further and further from that, where I have to try to remind myself again, okay, is this really that important? Like, is this going to affect me tomorrow? Is this going to affect me in a week? Is this going to affect me in 2 weeks? And most of the time the answer is no. So I still myself have to remind myself how to seek joy and how to let some of those small things go and kind of go back to that perspective of what is important in life. And, it just happens, I think, with everybody as we move forward in the day-to-day busyness of life. And I try to, reflect and take time to think about that when I am struggling with something, what really is important. And so some other things just to kind of talk about is that, with my story and sharing that with others and talking about grief and talking about how humor has helped me, is that, we all have like our own timeline on tragedies and grief and so forth. And something that I think is really important to know is that we all are so different, and that we all grieve differently, and then we all handle things differently. And why wouldn't we? We're all so different of people, from the way we've been raised to the culture that we live in, to just so many differences that we all have. And so I think at times we can put a label on like, okay, this is grief, this is how you should respond to it. But that is just truly not the case, that we all need to do things that make us feel comfortable and help us to progress through what our grief process is going to look like, what our tragedy or trauma process is going to look like. And it's messy. And, there are stages that, you can read in a textbook, but I'm going to tell you that I could go through all of those stages of like anger, denial, and crying, and all like within a minute. So it's just such a messy process, and everybody does it so differently. And just know that that's normal and that's okay. But it's also okay to get help, to know like, okay, I've reached my limit here and I might need to seek some outside resources here. And I've done that. And I think that's, makes you a really strong person to realize, okay, I can't do this on my own. I need some extra help here. And so that's another lesson that I've learned. Like, I'm a counselor. And so, accepting help like that, it can be challenging, even though that's what I did for a profession. And so, knowing like I need some extra help, that's okay too. And, I just didn't want others to feel alone in their grief. And it, was one of the loneliest battles that I have. And I still face it. I still feel lonely. Now I've remarried, and I have a husband, and there's still moments of just pure loneliness that I have, because I don't have others that I've met lots of other wonderful widows and others that have experienced grief, but I still just feel super alone in my feelings of loss and missing him, along with helping my children to deal with their grief as well, which is very challenging. So my life changed in a blink of an eye, and it's never going to be the same as it was, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be good. It just is, it's always going to be the happies and the sads, with every big event in my life. my children, my kids just had a birthday in April. My youngest, who just turned 4, who I was pregnant with when my husband died. And I still miss, I still think, oh, I wish he was here. Oh, I wish he was here to see this. My daughter just turned 14. I wish he was here. I wish he was there every day, and we talk about him every day, and we miss him every day. So there's not a day that goes by that we're not thinking about him and talking about him, because we love him and we still love him. And we always will. And I will always continue to talk about him because it keeps him alive to us. And he always will be alive to us because he's a huge part of our lives. And humor has definitely played a role in that, in all of that. But, you have to be the one to find what your gifts are and embracing those gifts, and what will help you. So, I've embraced helping others, laughter and optimism, and those have really helped push me through some of my grief moments, but definitely still have those moments and days where it feels just as intense as the day he went missing. So, that's kind of my story about that. And I really just, again, feel like I want to help others, to talk about it, and that it's okay to have your own journey and to have your own process. And that's, what is normal to you is normal to you. And so that's kind of my spiel there. And it looks like we're already starting to have a few different questions in the chat room. Is that true?
I see.
Oh, no questions so far. Or not.
That's okay.
I could talk a little bit too about the kind of the last couple chapters of my book are about how to help others. And, one thing that, I've gone through a tragedy. I'm no expert. I just know what's worked for me. And so hoping that what's worked for me helps others realize or know what works for them, or at least to feel some normalcy around hey, I'm experiencing this. Hey, I read she is too. It must be okay to feel this way, because your emotions can be so out of control. But, things that really helped me, especially in some of the early stages of grief, because I get this question quite a bit, is, I'll get messages like, my friend's husband died. What do I do? How do I help them? And I think the biggest thing is to know is there is nothing perfect that you can say. And I think people really want to have something good to say, something that's going to be really impactful. And, I've gone through this horrible tragedy. I don't have perfect things to say to people. I just want them to know that I'm here, that I'll help in any way that they can, and to just show up. I think those are some of the most important things, is that, just being honest about it. Is I don't know, nothing I'm going to say is going to help you feel any better, but just know I'm here. I'm here to help you. And, things like just showing up and doing things for that person without them asking, because one of the biggest things is, you're so sad, you're so down, you're so low that you don't even know what to ask for. So when someone just showed up and mowed my lawn, that was wonderful. When someone just sent me a gift card, that was great. When someone offered to watch my children, wonderful. So just doing some of those things without needing recognition. Sometimes just dropping off a meal and not having to stay. Because sometimes we don't want you to stay, and sometimes we do. But and just being kind, just knowing that they're going through something, even if they do have a smile on their face, that it still is affecting them. And so those are some kind of the things that have helped me, keep calling, keep texting. I had a friend who I didn't text back probably for the longest time. And I remember her telling me this story later. And she's like, I was telling my husband, I'm like, she just does not text me back. She's not texting me back. And I said to her, I read every text that you sent me. And it meant so much to me. I just couldn't respond. And so, just doing those small, kind acts really did help me to see the good in the world, to see the good in the support that I had. And it did ease some of my grief. And also when people would say his name, not feeling uncomfortable to say it. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the fact like, okay, I don't want to talk about her loss because that might bring up emotions for her. Well, I think about him every single day. And so it's not like a new thing like, oh, wait, did he die? Oh, yeah, that's right. Shoot, he did. I'm already thinking about him. So sure, sometimes I might, like your comment might make me cry, but that's okay. I want to talk about him. And obviously that's me. That's my personal journey. Your friends, your acquaintances. But I know that, sharing and talking about him really has helped me, that he's not forgotten. So those are some things that have kind of just helped me kind of when I'm talking to others, because I've talked to a lot of other widows and have been in different widow groups. And, it's been just a wonderful experience to have people that I can rely on and know they kind of understand me and we kind of understand each other.
Well, we do have a couple questions.
Oh, perfect.
We have somebody that would like to know, how do you talk about your late husband with your current husband, and how has he responded to your grief?
Mm-hmm. Well, I really do think you have to pick a special partner to deal with a widow or a widower. Because really, marrying my new husband, his name is Ryan, and he really has embraced me, my children, and Andy. He knows that Andy is not a threat to him. He knows that Andy is a huge part of our life and always will be. And he has embraced talking about Andy. And that has just brought us even closer together. He never feels jealous about if we talk about Andy. And obviously, I don't do comparisons when I talk to my husband. They're totally different people, and just because I still love my late husband doesn't mean I don't love my new husband. It's like when you have a new child, like you don't love that child any less. So, I mean, it is an interesting dynamic, but we do joke a lot about it. And like if I'm annoying him or say something extra wifey, he sometimes will look to the heavens and be like, help me. Like he's trying to form some kind of bond with him. And I'm like, he doesn't help you. He only helps me. So we talk about that and have kind of a funny dynamic about it. But I think the biggest thing is, though, he knows that I will always grieve. And he knows when I'm sad and have those sad moments that he embraces me and that he lets me experience those emotions. And he knows that I will always love Andy and I'm always going to be sad to miss him. And so it really has been, a wonderful experience in that way. I think I found the perfect person to live the remainder of my life with. So.
Yeah, he sounds pretty impressive, huh?
Yeah, he is pretty impressive.
I do have some other questions related to your writing. So we have two. One is, do you have any plans in the future to write another book? And then a follow-up question to that would be, how about children's books for grief? Would you ever consider writing a children's book for grief?
Yeah, I've been asked that question before about writing another book. And, I have thought about it. I just haven't had like the perfect idea yet. And plus, COVID happened and I released my book during COVID. So now I'm still trying to promote this current book, but I do love writing and I still will. If you follow me, I do have a blog, but I primarily will write on Facebook and Instagram because I just found like it has a better following. So, but I have thought about writing something else. And, I work with children, I work with high schoolers, and obviously I'm trying to help my own children through their grief. So I have thought about children's books as well, but just haven't gotten to that point yet. But who knows?
Who knows what your future brings?
Yes, who knows? We don't know.
I don't know. I see a lot of humor in your book, and I just still am a little surprised by your burial speech about the 3 plots.
Oh, yes. And I have made that joke with my husband too.
Is he in agreement with this? Is he there with you?
I don't think that he is, but he does make a comment that that he has me for the rest of my earthly life, and then he's like, and then what happens when we get to heaven? I just toast.
You got 2 hands, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
Yes. So, but that like a wicked sense of humor is kind of how I phrase it. Yes. Those kind of jokes and laughter really like helped me get through some of that really, really tough stuff.
Yeah. And then another part of your book that was very impactful was your son asking you about your husband. Has he ever talked about that in the future, or what would make him think something had happened?
No, he hasn't. And that was such a strange and surreal moment as I kind of reflected back after, I don't know how long, but it was very strange. And I don't know if I wrote this in the book too, but I almost felt like I was having kind of like an out-of-body experience regarding it as well, where I had almost envisioned it too. So I don't know. I mean, could it be part of just my body dealing with the trauma? Maybe, but he did definitely make those comments that, he's probably just dead. And I thought, why would he ever even say that? It wasn't something that we talked about like regularly. So very strange. And my son is a very like empathic, picks up on lots of feelings, very sensitive young man. And so, it very well could be he was just picking up on some of my anxieties, because I definitely was having those at that moment where I was trying to remain calm. But as the day progressed, my anxieties were building and building and building, where I think I was trying to tell myself, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. But obviously something was wrong, and I could feel it, because of what was happening, where he wasn't picking up his phone, which was so unlike him, which he wasn't returning for hours on end, which was just so not like him. He would get mad at me if I didn't return his call and this just was him, but like if I didn't return his call pretty quickly, so he always had his phone on because he was always just worried about us. And so it was just so out of his character that, my son does pick up on other people's feelings and emotions. And so it could very well been something to that effect too.
Another part of your story that you shared that was very impactful was your story about that first responder that, did he knock on your door? Or did you run into him? I can't remember.
No, he came to my door. Dave, the ambulance driver. Yes. And it's just it just shows you that even though, like in your small acts of your daily life, how it can impact somebody. Like, I'm sure he never thought that the moment, when he arrived on the scene, that just the simple fact of, can I pray with you? Would be one of those, because to be honest, like that whole night, that whole experience is such a blur, but there's bits and pieces of it that just really stick out. And that's one of them, because my emotions were so heightened. And, I kind of felt like I must have just needed that in the moment, that human connection. But yeah, he showed up exactly 1 year later. I hadn't had any contact with him for the entire year. I don't know how I remembered his name. But he showed up at my door. It was either on or close to Andy's anniversary. And he said, I don't know if you remember me. And he had brought me, I think, some chocolates or a gift card or something. And I said, of course I remember you, Dave. You're the ambulance driver that prayed with me. So yeah, just a very, just a moment that just really was so impactful. So just know that when you're doing small acts for others, just how much you can matter, even to just a stranger.
So was it hard to move out of Carver County after having such a full life here and so many people helping you through this difficult time?
It really, really was. I'm still sad about it,
I would
actually.
be too.
And I think the biggest thing is I'm so sad because I would have lived there forever. We would have lived in Waconia forever because we loved it so much. But especially my neighborhood. I mean, we're like a family. And, obviously I'm still friends with all of them. And my best friend was my neighbor as well. And so we still see each other and are still super close, but there's just something about living next to somebody versus, living 45 minutes away. But, as the process of moving forward and knowing that, if I wanted to be with this man, of course, if he moved to Waconia, if really, really push came to shove, sure. But he has children and, they needed to stay in their school district. So it would have been just ridiculous for him to be driving that much. And so I made the compromise. I had to, balance out what's more important, neighbors and community, or to have somebody at home at night and a partner. And that just was, and a father figure for my kids. And so those things just obviously outweighed, and we decided that we would move. And I'm like, if we can get through losing your dad, we can get through moving to a new school and moving to a new neighborhood. We're going to meet new people. We're going to have new friends. People move all the time, so, but still very sad. And I still feel so confused in Apple Valley, like where I am. So right now I'm in Chanhassen and I feel like comfortable. Like I know where everything is. So I still frequent Waconia.
Well, good. Stop by at the library anytime.
Yes, obviously. And then my husband is obviously buried in Waconia too. So we definitely come and visit.
So just maybe one more question. Oh, sorry, thought I got distracted there. How did Andy's family feel about your book, and do they just love it and it just has a special place in their heart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have a very unique situation with Andy's family where we are just very close. I was just lucky to have the in-laws and brother-in-laws that I did, and they've surrounded me in love. And my mother-in-law actually moved to Waconia after Andy died and helped me. She moved to an apartment and helped me for a couple of years. And so, yes, they, I think having someone to talk about it and having someone to continue to talk about Andy has helped in their grief too. And, her moving close to me and helping me with my kids really, not only helped me, but probably helped her even more in the loss of her son. Giving her a purpose and giving her, like these are Andy's children. And so been really kind of won the lottery in that department.
Yeah, maybe she'll show up in Apple Valley, huh?
Maybe.
Maybe.
He does not live in Waconia anymore.
Well, I just want to say a special thank you for coming on. Your story is so amazing. I told you before, but I just want to say it on Facebook that it was very impactful. And as I read it, I felt like I knew you. and this was going through, I probably cried 8 times, and they weren't always sad tears. They were tears of amazement
Mhm.
at how you were able to get through this with your spiritual guide and your family and all your community taking care of you. I just,
Yeah.
you were, you just
Well,
had,
thank you. My new husband can't even read the book because he gets too
oh,
emotional reading it.
oh my goodness. Yeah, it was tough and I didn't even know you yet.
Mhm.
Just thanks again and
Yes.
take care. Good luck with all your future endeavors and hopefully we
Yes.
see some more writing from you because you did do an amazing job
Yeah,
and
feel free to follow me on Instagram or Facebook, Katie the Wicked Widow. And the reason it's the Wicked Widow is because obviously humor has been huge, and my late husband loved Good Will Hunting, so I know he's rolling my eyes at this name, but I think I'm wicked funny and wicked smart. So that's
I
why
think
I
you
have
are too.
it's the Wicked Widow. So feel free to follow me, and I try to write and do little updates that I think are helpful to people. And one thing is, my husband and I are having a baby, and she's due in a couple of weeks. So look for that. And it's just been a whole journey that in itself is having a baby with a different man, and how that's impacted me. So
All right. Well, thanks again. Bye. Thanks for watching, everybody.
thank you.